Shalom, shalom. Welcome once again to the D.C.B channel. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, BINAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York, 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. Thanking the creator of heaven and earth for all things and everything, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Acknowledging that he is the king of the universe, the one and only, and unto him and him alone do we give praises. Thanking the creator of heaven and earth for my life and the life of all of you, Yisrael, all of you listening out there during this early Shabbat. And I pray that the creator of heaven and earth continue to bless you and keep you. Also acknowledging the leader of our congregation, even Chief Prince Yehudah Ben Yissaskar, thanking the Most High God for his life and for the life of his family, praying that the Most High God be with him and keep him. Also thanking the Most High God for the person or the teacher who's going to be going over the Haftarah for Toldot, even going through the Tanakh and a review of the Tanakh, even none other than one of my teachers and one of my mentors, Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. So how are you, Nasik? Shalom, shalom.
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Tongue of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the platform I'm on, which is a D.C.B platform, the Chief Prince Yehudah, spiritual leader of D.C.B, and also to the host, Chief Uziel, to the princes, chiefs, Kohanim, Marine, rabbis, brothers and sisters. I greet you in the tongue of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem. And also, I like to say, Adonai Septai Tita Kufiyaki Tia Theka. O Lord, undown my lips, my mouth should declare thy praise. I'll be going over the Haftarah Toldot, but I will be speaking briefly, summarizing some of the things in the Sidra Toldot. And then I'll try to tie the Haftarah with the Sidra that's read every week. So one of the interesting things is it has a personal value, this particular Sidra for me, because one of the late great teachers, Nasik known by most, Chief Barak from BINAH King, he's one of the first chief men I ever met, coming into this way of life. And he introduced me to this portion, but not the whole portion, just a verse in there about Esau in Genesis 25. And every time we get to Toldot, I've been thinking about that time when I just hadn't ask him about Africans. I thought he was African or something like that, or they were super Muslims because of their dress code and everything like at that time. So, and he showed me the verse in the book, and at that time they say, well, Esau is the white man. That's what they were saying, being this black thing was being pushed with political agendas too at the time as well, dealing with scriptures. And I'm going to also try to tie that part up with the Haftarah, because a lot of things we take from not only this particular Sidra, but also what we take from the Haftarah become a political more so than the actual historical facts. But be as it may, at that time, I never read the scriptures before in my life. I couldn't even tell you what was the first book in there, what was the first line. Though it would seem like I knew it all my life to some people, I never knew anything about Adam or Genesis or in the beginning. I didn't grow up in the church. So, and even though I wasn't born in knowledge of myself as Israelite, my family just didn't go, our immediate family just didn't go to church. So I never had a thing where I could read the scriptures at all. So this is my first introduction to scriptures. And so it has a special value for me as well. So I like to bring out that the beginning of, for those that follow the Sidra, that's from Genesis, the 25th chapter, the 19th verse. But I like to go through a few things and bring out some points, hopefully, that would be, something of interest for most people other than myself. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abram's sons. And Abraham begot Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean, of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. What I find interesting, the word Toldot itself. And I always like to start off at the beginning of a sidra, because that is really the theme. And everything else is, entrees, as they say. But the generations, why would they use the plural for generations? And yet we only talking about Abraham's son, Isaac being the son of Abraham. One guy. That's all we read here. All we read is one guy. Abraham begot Isaac. And then it talks about Isaac. But he used the word Toldot, as opposed to generations. Where are the generations that's enumerated in this here first verse? And sometimes we only think of those things that comes behind us. But also, we already know Abraham is the father of Isaac. So why would they even say that again? Sometimes you got to recognize not only what's going to come from you, but what is be above you. So in other words, the generations that's behind you and the generations that's from you. So in other words, you got to understand and know your legacy, your history. What was important at the time when I come in now to myself as an Israelite was everybody had an identity. The so-called black man in America had no identity, such as when the Muslims, they would say, we don't know who we are, so we'll say X. And hence, that was one of the main talks on the corners with the Israelites, especially for my group that I've come under, that every time we ask a black man what's their identity, they would say they talk about their religion. Baptist, Protestant, Catholic, or I don't know. Where when we say we're Israelites, we're talking about a national identity. And so this will make a greater impact when we talk about a national identity, because here in Toldot, though Avram is mentioned about begot Isaac, they don't even talk about Ishmael here. They talk about Isaac here. And yet this is the generations of Isaac. Isaac's generation is predicated on where he comes from. And we as black people, for the majority at one time, had not even a clue on who we are and where we belong. So I find that very impactful that the word Toldot is in the plural to give us some kind of information about not only where we headed and where are going to be our descendants, but also where our roots are from. So, and then said he got married at 40, so we know that already. But when we get there, it says, and it goes on to say, and Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord let himself be entreated of him. And Rebekah and his wife conceived, and the children struggled within her. And she said, if it be so, wherefore do I live? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. All right. Now, what we have is a lot of interesting things that's going on in here. And I'm not going to speak much on the Sidra. I just want to bring out some stages here that goes along with the Haftarah. That we talk about, first of all, when they entreated, when we look into the Hebrew, they both was opposite one another, praying. But the Creator answered Isaac's prayer, in a sense. And though they both was praying, it makes it clear that both of them, he's praying opposite his wife. I mean, she's on one side and he's on another side, and they're praying about her barrenness. And you notice that all the matriarchs were barren, including Mother Leah, as we're going to get to later on. It's just that the Creator opened up her womb because of her situation. And when we read here, this is the first time you read about in the scriptures about twins. And usually, from what I understand, I don't have a degree in medical profession, but usually twins have different sacks, and Esau and Jacob was in the same sack, and they're fighting, they're struggling. And you can say, well, what is the issue that embryos got to fight? That's what we say. Why would embryos struggle in the womb? And she know that it was actually a struggle in her womb, and she prayed to be impregnated. She prayed for an offspring, and one would have been sufficient, but she have two. And then now it would say, you'll be wondering, why would I pray for something? And then I'm in such a bad condition that I don't know anybody else that ever been in this condition before, like this. So she went to inquire because this was an unusual situation. What the issue they're fighting about, there's a lot of commentaries on it, which I'm not going to go into, now, because that's not my purpose right now. But the thing is that it was a struggle going on between siblings that's not even out the womb, in the womb. And then what would be the goal? That's what we got to ask. If you're fighting and struggling, what will be the issue? So that being said, and they're talking about two manner, people. That means though they had the same mother, the same father, they're gonna have their own unique characteristics. So the DNA gonna be there, but they gonna have their own unique characteristics, and their own unique characteristic is determined by the Creator. It's almost like saying the families of the earth was divided by their nations. So now, if they was divided by their nations, if everybody come from one individual, how would we be so different? And it's the diversity that's really shows you that, and this testimony that there is a Creator. But when we go further, it says that not only going to be a difference in their strength, but it's going to be a difference in also their authority figure. All right. And it says, and then it goes to describe when the days were fulfilled. But I'm skip on down to 25th verse. It says, and the first came forth ruddy all over like a hairy mantle, and they called his name Esau. And after that came forth his brother, and his hand had hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bore them. All right. And I'm just going to go just a little bit more. And it says, and the boys grew. Esau was a cunning hunter, a man in the field, and Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. Now Isaac loved Esau because he did eat up his venison. And Rebekah loved Jacob. And Jacob saw it polished, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. All right, we're going to stop right there just for a moment. The characteristics of the individual, but we have not only that, they look different to a degree, physically. And say, but you notice how long it was after Isaac was married that he had any children? 20 years. So we give him information. 20 years time. He married at 40, and it took him 20 years to get 2 boys out of all that time. So it took Abraham a lot longer, but he had to go through a special thing. But you never read where Abraham, and I want to bring this out different, bring out some points. You never read where Abraham prayed for his wife to have children. But yet you read here where Isaac and his wife both had the same prayer that she would get pregnant, which is a difference. So when they say, well, Abraham went longer without any children, 86 years old when Ishmael was born. Isaac wasn't trying to, and though he lived longer than any other patriarch, he wasn't waiting that long. He addressed the issue soon, not only on his behalf, but on the behalf of his wife at the time. So now the thing is that when you talk about love here, and they're talking about Isaac loved Esau, because he's, but we know Esau was a man of the field, a hunter, and Jacob was a plain man. Not much described. What is a plain man? What is a whole man? There's not much talked about in that instant there. But what we find here is that Isaac's reason for loving Esau is given. There's no reason for Rivka, given why she loved Jacob. What is also unique here is that this is basically, only a few times in scriptures where it talk about you have love going on. All right. And it's the third unique love. The first time you read about it is that the Creator described Abraham's love for his son Isaac, thy only son, whom thou lovest. That's the first time. So now you got a love between parent and child. The next time you hear about Isaac took Rebekah to wife, and he loved her. He married her first and then he loved her. A lot of times we say love first and then marry, and you say, how long should the courtship be? Well, we don't know how long the courtship would be in that case. But he married her first, and he said he loved her later. See, the marriage is, when you time the love may fade, before the marriage. Is where here it is more important to have the marriage and then the love to transcend and go beyond the marriage. In the Isaac's case and Rivka's case. Now you have not only Abraham being told about a father's love for a son and a man's love for his wife. But now you got a division of love within a family household. And the division of love in the family household, one man loves one son and the wife loves another son. It never said they hated the other one or vice versa in that case. But the love is specified. Now you got a divided love in one household when you had children already born and to the same parents, but are going to have two unique identities. And they were struggling before anything was spoken on about their identity. One of the things I like to say is that sometimes parents can contribute in the household where you love one sibling more than the other, and you show that and exhibit that so much that it creates a problem. And as we know from the story later on, certain things go on. But we see that sometimes within a household, certain parents will contribute to the diversity of the kids, feeling a certain way about themselves in relationship to their parents. Now, when we talk about in reference to Rivka, I noticed about this. That's this thing. I had to bring it out. I always try to avoid bringing it out because so many Israelites use this here cliche and proverb pretty much is that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, the thing is that that's a nice African proverb. And I understand what they're trying to say in the African proverb. But the problem with that proverb is that it's about parenting. It's not about, and they leave out parenting as an issue and just say, look here, the village is the ones that raise your children. And it's about, the scriptures about parenting. We know that the orphan and the widows is looked out by basically the priests, the Levites who deal with the community. We know also that the sad part and the reality behind that proverb that people say is that, oh, when it takes a village to raise a child, but the irony is that nobody in the village would adopt a child in their house. And that's the irony. The village will raise them from out there. But will you invite them in to be part of your family? That's a whole nother story. That's why it's about parenting, and that's what the scriptures focus on, parenting, you know, as raising parents, and parents being responsible for their children. People can assist, but it's your responsibility as a parent. And in this society here, they move away a lot of the authority of the parent to other people instead of people developing to be parents. So we're gonna go just a little bit further in this here, right quick. I just want to bring out where the floor come in at the time with this the Sidra, is that when they talk about in the 29th verse, and Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, let me swallow, I pray thee, some of this red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. And Jacob said, sell me first that birthright. And Esau said, behold, I'm at the point to die. What profit shall the birthright do to me? And Jacob said, swear to me first. And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage and of lentils. And he did eat and drink and rose up and went his way. So Esau despised his birthright. Now, I just want to bring out this one little point before I go skip on. I'm going to skip over a lot of this here and go to another point. Sort of like trying to build up with the Haftarah, is that, one, where's the brotherly love? When somebody asks you for food, you come from a household of Abraham, who would normally readily feed an individual, and yet you want to strike a deal. And we always confuse the archetype, I said it before when I did this particular Sidra, with the character. And here he come from the field faint, and he said, feed me. Not even give me, feed me. So in other words, I'm really weak, and I'm at the point to die. And you want to strike a deal first? Now, there's a lot of things, like variables I want to bring out. One, Esau sold a birthright for a pot of beans, lentils. How long would the meal last? 30 seconds? 2 minutes? So a birthright lasts forever. But yet the beans, that food he ate, only lasts for a couple of minutes at the most. So now, that's a lesson to be learned. Are we willing to sell something that's going to last forever just for something that will only endure a moment? That's one lesson that we could get from that particular verse. That it don't take long to eat the pot of beans and some bread and drink. But that birthright gonna be as long as you live. That's yours. And you give that up. And then what else we can learn from that particular thing? That you figure Esau should hate Jacob for seeing him in that condition and forcing him to bargain at a condition and a time when he's in desperate need. But he didn't hate Jacob. According to the scriptures, he hated the birthright. You say, well, what the birthright did to you in order for me to hate the birthright is what came between us that I didn't know existed between us. If we want to look at it like that, is the birthright. When you treat me so vile, that all it's going to take is just a moment of your time, a moment of your kindness, So those are things to consider and talk about and discuss even further, because you got to deal with the man for where he's at now and not what you think he's going to be in the future. Where he's at now. A lot of us have a past, and if we live long enough, we're going to have a future. But where you at now, you want people to at least judge you righteously according to where you at now and not according to your past. And that's and so when we look at this story here, we got to really look at it objectively as judges that are seeking righteousness and not being prejudiced and use political molds behind it, which have been a lot of things been taken from this particular sidra to be politically motivated. All right, we know Esau got married at 40, and that's he followed his father's footsteps in that area that he got married at 40 years old. All right, well, we know already. One more thing I'd like to just bring out is that we know that the mother, Isaac wanted to bless Esau with a blessing, and we know the mother took part, and it was her initiative idea to get Jacob involved, her son, to deceive Isaac to get the blessing. And I always have problems with some people that say, well, God was in the plan. The Creator is never in the plan of wickedness. I like to say that, and I might say it one more time just to make sure. The Creator is never in your plan to be wicked, to do something wrong. He might take a bad situation and try to straighten it, and straighten it out. But you're gonna pay some dues while he's straightening it out. So the Creator could take a bad situation that we created for ourselves, and he's gonna give us. He'll lighten up on some of the judgment, but he could definitely he's by showing us some mercy, but he will straighten it out. And that's and so we got to consider all that, what's going on, and then we got to think about Yaakov himself. How you think about your mother when your mother say, "Look, obey my voice, your curse be upon me." You rather something you do go cause somebody else harm, and you don't think about that at all. If I'm gonna do something and cause something to somebody I love and that love me, and I say, well, okay, as long as I ain't got to pay for it, as long as I got to get caught up in it, we got to think about those things. This is real. A lot of psychological things going on here, from the disparity of parenting love to how the kids feel about each other and how they deal with each other, and also the intrigues that go on here. The last thing I'd like to bring out is that, Jacob got the blessing and everything like that there, and caused Esau to cry. And one of the great things I find in this scripture here, and the Toldot, before I go into the Haftarah, which hopefully won't be too long. One of the great things I find about dealing with the scripture, I'm just bringing out some things for people to discuss and talk, because I know how a lot of, especially from my circles of Israelites, the main teachings that was going on in reference to this particular portion. And I like to bring out this point of view here, is that when we look at all the intrigues that goes on here, and how the deception of a father, and not only the deception of the father, but how one person is hurt and done wrong. As bad as we talk about Esau, one thing we could say that was never, ever, ever done before that Esau did that was great, and where he deserves some merit at. And that is when he was hurt and was on the verge of revenge, he considered the feelings of another individual, which is his father. Now that takes a lot of strength. That I want to do something. I'm hurt. I'm really at my wit's end. but I could calm down enough and wait because I care about my father's feelings. I'm already hurt and I can suffer this pain within me, but I care about somebody else's feelings. Now that is laudable. And that is something that's marvel. And the first time you read about that, actually in scriptures, that a person will put away their own hurt at that time for an atrocity that's done to them, even though he's going to go to the extremes because of somebody else that's dear to them. So I'm going to leave, pretty much with one more thing to think about. And that's in towards the end when Esau got married, and that he realized when Rebecca used the rule, she knew about whatever Esau said he was going to do. All right, but one of the things I find is that we don't read where Esau was told not to marry no Canaanite women. We don't read that in scriptures. Esau had to see and realize on his own, as he'd been married all that time, that his father and his mother never cared for his wives. We're not given any information about what was it that was an issue with the wives, other than that they was Canaanites. That's all, people of the land. That's the only issue we know about that. That there was, and that's the only one spoken on. Because one idol worshiper to another idol worshiper, you say, well, it's a moral value maybe, but they was never told. And one thing I like to just throw out there as I'm passing through before I go into the Haftarah, was that the wife that Abraham took later on, I know about the commentaries in reference to it, but the one they call about Keturah after Sarah had died and after Isaac was married. There's some that say we don't know who it was, her identity. Was she from over there, of Ur the Chaldean or Aram, or was she a daughter of the land? It's comments on both sides of that, but we don't know who she was. So far, we see Esau following his father's footsteps and getting married, and he had wives, and he didn't know. He had to see that his wives did not please his father. So those type of things there, there's a lot of stuff to be discussed. So I'm going to skip on over here and go into the Haftarah portion in the book of Malachi. And Malachi comes along during the second Commonwealth, the second temple was just built. And since it was just built, he's the last of the prophets. Now, a lot of people say Malachi, something Malki, that's the Hebrew pronunciation, Malki, which means my messenger. Or you could say my angel if you want. Now we have people who have problems with the word mal as being an angel, or and just say messenger. And the thing is that we read a lot about the angels in books, but we never read where all of them had a message. But we read about them being present, but they don't read about the message. And that's the thing, and which we're going to come to later on, what we've seen in the past. So on one hand, some brothers have this issue or phobia about, they're just a messenger, But everybody don't have a message, but they have a status, and which I like to bring in this particular portion as well. So we're going to go into, so he's talking in reference to, and the drama in this particular prophecy. We don't know anything about Malachi. Malachi, we don't have any idea who he is, other than he's a prophet and what's written in the book about him. That's the only information we got on him. We have an idea of the time because it was given, but we don't have much about his character and identity or anything like that. So we're gonna start from the first. This Haftarah goes from the first chapter, the first verse, and it goes to the second chapter, the seventh verse. If you're ready, Chief Woods.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
We're going into the book of Malachi chapter 1, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
The burden of the word of Yehovah to Israel by Malachi.
All right.
I have.
So why is the word? I like to focus on the first line too sometime. All right. Why is God's word a burden? That's number one. You know, why is it so heavy? You know, it's a burden when you guys say something bad, tell somebody about themselves, concerning themselves. You know, and this portion really is more about ritual that we're going to read about as opposed to morals. So it's about the ritualistic service that we're going to talk about in the book of Malachi here, where later on he addressed moral issues, you know, after this particular Haftarah. But right now it says it's a burden, you know, but who burden it is the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel. That means right then and there that the Creator don't want to have to tell us about ourselves. So he don't really want to tell us about ourselves. And so right now, that's as important as the operative. But let's read on a little bit further.
It reads,
second verse.
Verse 2 reads, I have loved you, saith Yehovah, yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not
Ain't that something? Go ahead, keep going.
Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith Yehovah? Yet I loved Jacob, but Esau I hated, and made his mountains a desolation, and gave his heritage to the jackals of the wilderness.
Stop right there before we get there. All right. Out of all the Creator do for us, we had nerve to question him. Like, I don't really see it. You need to explain yourself. You know what I mean? And imagine now, this after the Babylonian captivity. This after Cyrus said, okay, y'all can come on back. This after they built the second temple already. And yet, what's going on at this quick time, shortly after they built the second temple, that the Creator got issues with them? Can we read Zechariah and all that? And everything seemed to be coming along all right. At the beginning, they trying to do reformation and they trying to tighten things up. You know, they were tighten up the priesthood and all this kind of stuff. But shortly, and some problems jump up right after that. And mind you now, the second temple is already built when it's going out. About basically 450 BCE, this prophecy is going about. And he's considered the last prophecy, but to consider what people say Old Testament. We like to say Holy Scriptures. All right. So, and it goes on to tell them that they're brothers, but in comparison to what he do, and it goes on to say why in comparisons. All right, because what Esau inherit, he inherit Mount Seir. Mount Seir ain't no oasis. Mount Seir ain't no strong pastoral land. Say Israel was the glory of all lands. Jerusalem and all that stuff, the land of Israel is the glory of all lands. And had all kind of products growing up in there. So what Esau inherit in Mount Seir, how much could grow up on a mountain? You know, so and one of the blessing was he gonna live by the sword. So he got a strong arm and make a living. You know, like we used to have a series, a Western when I was coming up. I watch it every now and then because I like it on TV land called Have Gun Real Travel with Paladin, and he's a gunslinger for hire. Esau was that kind of guy. The people descendants of Esau, and that's with a sword. We noticed that when Israel was coming out of Egypt, and that's going to digress just a little bit, that they wanted to pass through the land of Esau's territory. And Esau said, no, you ain't going to come with us. If you come out of the land, we're going to come out with our sword, because that's his blessing, the sword. Our blessing is the word, the voice. So we read, and a lot of political stuff is used in that Esau blessing was to be able to wield a sword. Our blessing was to be able to pray, use our voice and petition. Nobody could pray better than any Israelite, whether they know themselves or not. our people, whether they go into Buddhism, whether they go into Islam, whether they go into Christianity, whether they go into Shintoism, whatever the case is, nobody bring out more prayer with their voice, more soul with their voice than our people. And yet that's our blessing. So naturally, we turned around when he took, because he had his blessing. But in the territory they lived in, he was residual. You know what I mean? And that's what the prophecy is going to bring out. Read from the 4th verse, it says.
4. Verse 4 reads on this wise. Whereas Edom saith, we are beaten down, but we will return and build the waste places. It thus saith Yehovah of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall be called the border of wickedness, and the people whom Yehovah execrated forever. And your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, Yehovah is great beyond the border of Yisrael.
All right there. Before we get into the next part. All right, one of the things is that it's talking about the descendants of Esau, not Esau himself. Esau, name changed to Edom. So therefore, the combination is Edom is the descendants of Esau, and Israel is the descendant of Jacob. And so when we talk about they're going to build up and build up, you say, well, you know, this place is a waste place. You're going to build up and still make it a home, make it a habitat, you know. But because of the way you tried to gain stuff, the Creator said, all right, you're going to be doing it in vain. But yet he still allowed them, we can see a glimmer of mercy when this is destroyed and you got the will to say, look, I'm down and out, but I'm coming back and trying to do it again. So it shows the residualness of even that people. And yet this is a people that inherit a wilderness of a wasteland. So naturally, you're going to have a certain type of mentality. Let's read a little bit further on 6th verse.
Well, in verse 6 reads, a son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is my honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith Yehovah of hosts unto you, O priest, that despise my name, and ye say, wherein have ye despised thy name?
Hold right there. Stop right there. We're not going another further. First of all, the Creator already said, I'm great beyond the border of Israel. But now, he's not addressing the local yokels. He's not addressing the princes. He's not addressing the chiefs. He's not addressing all the other teachers or the judges. He's addressing the ones that are supposed to be nigh unto him, the priests. And so now, this is to let you know that it's a ritual situation. How you deal with in your worship. How you present yourself before the Creator. And then that priest got nerve to say, how do we despise you? You know? And so the Creator, not only knowing that this is going to be your reply, knowing that this is how you're thinking, because you know the end of the thing before it exists, but he already presented your part of your argument that you're going to say and denial, and he's going to go ahead on and explain it. So now we're going to pick it up from there.
Verse 7. Verse 7 reads on this wise. Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? And that ye say, the table of Yehovah is contemptible.
Look right there. Ain't that something? By our actions, we say that, and then we say, where have we polluted it? You know, some people think they're doing right. You know, we used to have the saying when I was coming up. People will kill you and think they're doing God a favor. We used to say that coming up. They'll kill you and think they're doing God a favor. Here it is. The most spiritual person that we're going to have in the whole nation is corrupt in the service. On Yom Kippur, in certain days when they do certain Yisrael services, those that follow a traditional prayer position, from a rabbinic type prayer position, they got a prayer called Hineni. And that's usually the guy that normally leads the prayers through the services, normally yearly. He talks about he don't want to be the cause of the prayer not being accepted because of him presenting that prayer on behalf of the people. And those that may have a book that, in there, it's good to read about it and everything like that. And a lot of times when we pray, we can't take for granted that our sins is not going to be noticed, though we're praying on behalf of somebody else. Because they say, well, why they elected you out of all people to pray to me on their behalf? They need somebody to pray for you. So that's why that prayer is instituted. It's because whoever leads the prayer must first acknowledge that they're not even worthy to pray on that behalf of the people. But they don't want the people to pay for them not being worthy, because the people might ask them to pray for them. So therefore, they go ahead on and acknowledge that they are nothing at all, but actions dust. And they don't want the people to be held accountable because they wanted him to pray on their behalf. So therefore, it's important when the brothers say, well, who's going to say the tefillah in any congregation? When the brother's going to say the tefillah in every congregation, you got to also realize I got faults. So now you got to really pretty much, not just on Yom Kippur, but acknowledge that you don't want the people you're praying for in your various congregations to be held accountable because of maybe our shortcomings if we're praying for an individual. So that's just something moving forward to think about when a person going to pray on behalf of the congregation. But here it is. We get an example of that right here in the book of Malachi. That's what I like about that's why I talk about ritual, because ritually, we will ritually pray and ritually say without ritually doing what we're supposed to do. And let's go on. And that's what this portion is about. Go a little further.
Verse 8. When you offer the blind for sacrifice, is it no evil? And when you offer the lame and sick, is it no evil? Present it now unto thy governor, and will he be pleased with thee? Or will he accept thy person, saith Yehovah of hosts? And now I pray you, entreat the favor of God, that he may be gracious unto us. This have been of your doing. Will he accept any of your persons, saith Yehovah of hosts?
Stop right there. Stop right there before you go any further. All right. Now, later on, we'll get to it when we get to it. All right. But one of the things is that if you gave it to a normal human being, you give me a present or something that you don't want. See, a sacrifice is something you could use, not something that you don't want. Something you could use. All right. When we give, say, like to the Salvation Army, a lot of times say, well, I ain't gonna use this anymore. I really don't want it. I don't, but if it's something that I could use and I give it to them, then that's the ultimate thing of charity, because I could use this here myself, but so-and-so need it more than me. That's the ultimate good of charity and kesef and love. But when you say, well, I ain't using it anyway, I might as well put it to some good use. And that's what we say in our head. I might as well put it to some good work. And say, because I don't like the way that turned over here, it got this here messed up on it, got this stain on it, so I'm gonna get rid of this anyway, so so-and-so could use it. All right, well, some people definitely probably could use it, but we got to consider, is that the best thing to do? Now, if you give it to somebody of esteem, somebody that's have a higher status than you, would they want something that you don't want? Let's go a little further now. Pick it up. 10th verse.
Verse 10, it reads, Oh, that there were even one among you that would shut the doors, that ye might not kindle fire on mine altar in vain. I have no pleasure in you, saith Yehovah of hosts, neither will I accept an offering at your hand.
Hold right there. All right. Ain't that something? He said, I need y'all to even shut up the temple. This is the temple, second temple. Said, will somebody at least shut the door so they don't keep messing up in there? Close the door, close the house. I remember years ago, just I remember a great man. I don't want to bring the name because, some people still around. But it's a great man, one of my mentors too as well. And he said, I'm going to close the place down. You know what I mean? Got to purify the house. Because it was so much, visitation that was coming through. And I'm saying visitation, not people that actually belong to the congregation that was coming through and trying to make a home there, so to speak. And it wasn't too savory what stuff was going on after hours and everything like that. So he said, I'm going to close the house and fumigate the house, purify it. So the Creator said, this place here that y'all that's supposed to be dedicated for my name to dwell therein, and y'all done built it up and got things running. Now y'all done turn around and say, look here, y'all ain't doing the right thing. I need you. Will somebody please shut it down? Can you imagine the Creator telling you to shut down worship to him in the ritualistic sense? At a time when we depended on that and looked for that? Let's read a little bit further. 11.
Verse 11, it reads, for from the rising of the sun even unto the going down of the same, my name is great among the nations, and in every place offerings, and in every place offerings are presented unto my name, even pure oblations. For my name is great among the nations, saith Yehovah of hosts.
Stop right there before we go to 12. Stop there. All right. That means a heathen is more devoted in their service. Some of us got, people that's in the, in the family that's really devout in the church and everything like that there. And they'll pray and and they pray hard and really go into their prayer sincerely and everything. And they're praying to God. Some of us got Muslims in the family that pray real hard 5 times a day and said, no matter what I'm doing, I'm going to stop right now. I got to wash up my hands. I got to wash up my feet. I got to clear my nostrils and everything like that before I could say a prayer. All right. So that kind of dedication coming from other people, the Creator said, they are more sincere and they're not the priest. And you're supposed to be doing greater things than they are. So that makes the unique difference in the worship service. But let's read a little bit further. We're going to try to step this up just a notch. 12th verse.
Verse 12, it reads, but ye profane it in that ye say, the table of Yehovah is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even the food thereof, is contemptible.
Ain't that something? Go ahead, keep on.
Ye say also, behold, what a weariness is it, and ye have snuffed at it, saith Yehovah of hosts, and ye have brought that which was taken by violence, and the lame and the sick. Thus ye bring the offering. Shall I accept this of your hand, saith Yehovah?
Stop right there before we get to the 14. Mm-hmm. The word they use, one word I found interesting in the Hebrew is Pesach. Pesach is almost like Passover. That's what they use the term for stolen. And it's strange that they use that particular name and that particular term, Pesach as opposed to Pesach. It's like to remind you what I done for you from the very beginning. That it is, you left Egypt, you didn't steal anything. Now you're gonna offer me some stolen stuff. So this is some of the unique stuff that you didn't steal anything to bring up the offer of a sacrifice when you left Egypt. But yet you're gonna bring me stolen stuff. Now and say, well, who stole it? The priest? The priest is responsible to make sure that whatever he get to offer up is clear. It's not stolen goods. So that means if a guy bring you something, say, where you get that from? Oh, don't worry about that, man. Let's go ahead. It's good. Like that. We got to be careful about that. And I come from a place where you figure we should have had a cathedral with as much money went through that place over the years. Literally a cathedral, especially with the price of real estate back then. We should have had a cathedral. But due to certain situations and where income might have came from that was not quite godly, then you can't build a godly edifice on an ungodly foundation. So this is one of the things that's being presented here. All right, but read a little bit further. Pick it up. 14.
It reads, verse 14. But cursed be he that dealeth craftily, whereas he have in his flock a male, and voweth and sacrificeth unto the Lord a blemished thing. For I am a great king, saith Yehovah of hosts, and my name is feared among the nations.
Now, everybody know about me. If you know, like we used to say, if you don't know, you better ask someone. So that's nothing new. So if you don't know, you better ask someone. The Creator said, look, my name is feared. People heard about me. They ain't gonna mess around with me. They might have their own things they're doing, but they ain't gonna mess around with me. I got a rap. And look how y'all treated me. But we're going here. We got 7 verses in the second chapter. Go ahead, Timshi.
And it reads, verse 1, Malachi chapter 2, verse 1. And now this commandment is for you, O ye priests, and ye will not hearken. If ye will not hearken, and if ye will not lay it to heart, to give glory unto my name, saith Yehovah of hosts, then will I send a curse upon you, and I will curse your blessings. Yeah, I curse them because ye do not lay it to heart.
Hold right there. And that's something. Now the priest get cursed. Who gonna say the prayer? Who gonna bring up the offering? Who gonna talk for me? Say, wow, God, man, the man that he says is supposed to be the closest. The closest man, the Creator is upset with him. And yet, we know the stuff he's getting is getting from the people. At that. But he desecrating something that is holy. You only can serve the Creator the way the Creator wants to be served, and not the way you think he should be served. Let's read a little bit further. Third.
Verse 3 reads, Behold, I will rebuke the seed of your hurt, and I will spread dung upon your faces, even the dung of your sacrifices, and ye shall be taken away unto it. Know then that I have sent this commandment unto you, that my covenant might be with Levi, saith Yehovah of hosts.
Hold right there. All right, now, before we get that, what is the covenant with Levi? We're not really sure. It's not explained clearly in here, you know, in this particular chapter. And we know that he had a covenant of peace with Pinchas, but we don't know. We don't get any information about what are the details of the covenant. You know, and neither one of the spots. We get a little bit of idea in numbers, what he said was a covenant he had with Pinchas, but we know that he chose the tribe of Levi for a particular job, and we know he chose out the tribe of Levi a particular family of the tribe of Levi for a particular job, which is the priesthood. And out of the priesthood, he chose a particular line of Aaron to come through Pinchas as the priesthood, as the high priest. So now, as far as the covenant, it's expanded now. So what is the covenant of Levi? That's something for discussion. But we're going to go straight on to the next verse.
Verse 5 reads, My covenant was with him of life and peace, and I gave them to him, and of fear, and he feared me and was afraid of my name.
Okay, now that's the best we're going to get out of that, you know, life and peace, you know, and I gave them to him, all right? One individual. All right, but yeah, it's referring to as the whole house. So now, you know, but now it's including the whole tribe. What it goes on to say? 6.
It reads, The law of truth was in his mouth, and unrighteousness was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and uprightness, and did turn many away from iniquity. For the
some will say, before we go to that, some would say that's might have been Aharon, because in the center of the golden calf, they say nobody from the tribe of Levi was involved with that. So that's some of the commentaries within it. And the last verse, 7.
Last verse, verse 7 reads, For the priest's lips shall keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth. For he is the messenger of Yehovah of hosts. Hallelujah.
Okay. Now, the last verse, talking about, you know, supposed to keep knowledge, you know. And that's the priest's lips. And they should seek the law at his mouth. Now, that means the priest now, as described by Malachi, is not only a guy that deal with ritual, but he also supposed to have some knowledge of civil law. So now you could go to him on civil matters as well. So the priest, that thing is even expanded more, you know, and then not only is it expanded more, of on there, but it said, and it said he's supposed to observe or keep guard knowledge. He's supposed to protect it. That's what it is. And then it says, for he is the Malach of the Lord of hosts. All right. So if he's the Malach of Adonai Sephirot, then we know automatically that the priest job is a very, very high responsibility job for the nation of Israel, and we depend on them having good priests. Now, the tribe of Levi thing is blessed. The blessing you read when you go in the book of Deuteronomy, you read some blessings that Moses gave upon them in reference to that. But a lot of times, this particular chapter of Malachi is used a lot in political moves against anybody that during the second Commonwealth. Basically, around the year about 135 CE, Common Era, with the Hadrianic Wars and the destruction of Betar, during different guys like the Zillox and Rabbi Akiva time, Josephus period, going close into that same era, that they use and say Edom is anybody that destroy Israel, and they take certain scriptures like Isaiah, and they use the word about an ox, and they use the word Romim, so they pronounce it a little different. But it became more political to say that anybody that comes to destroy the nation of Israel, we look at them as Edomites and stuff like that. And as people take a lot of scriptures, and we did it ourselves from the camp I'm from for political reasons, and said certain things in the early years of Benny King. Only because we had a particular agenda to try, and the time element warrant that. But today, and doing a lot of history, those might find out to say, well, the Romans are Edomites and stuff like that, because I read it in a book. That was more political, and it's based on those things that they started doing after the destruction, after the oppression, the occupation of Rome, and the different rebellions that was coming up from the nation of Israel. So with that, I hope you got something out of what I said, and any mistakes been my own. And like I said, if you need to make a comment, just leave a comment. I'll look at the comments, pretty much so.
Nasik, so I have a question before you go. Yesterday I did Ezekiel chapter 40 and 41. I basically used if you know, Ezekiel chapter 40 and 41 are about the new temple, right? Many Christians call it the millennial temple. Some people argue that this is the temple that Herod built, started building in 19 BCE, and he ended the construction at around 64 CE. So in your opinion, the temple that they speak about, or the outline that they give of this new temple in Ezekiel, I believe it's from chapters 40 to 48. Has that temple been built already, or is that temple a new temple that's going to happen in the future? It's a very interesting question, and it's a very dynamically good question as well. One of the things that, from my knowledge, from what I know, is that amongst other stuff, some of the things that was almost going to disqualify the book of Ezekiel being canonized, simply because of the time that he lived in the beginning of the oppression of the Babylonians and stuff like that, and where he was located, and the Commonwealth that came back with Ezra, Zerubbabel, and all them guys never ever built it, and yet they had the same information. So the harmonize that, they say this is for the ultimate third temple to come back. That's a comment on it, whether it's true or not. It's they got a lot of viewpoints they base it on, given in scripture, different scriptures and different points. And we noticed that everybody didn't leave Babylon that could have left Babylon, and everybody didn't come back at the time. So they would say, and the size and dimensions is given. And also, and for this to exist, you not only got to have it, not only the priesthood, which Ezra and them had the priesthood established,
but they didn't have a monarchy established. And since they didn't have a monarchy, and the third temple is based on a monarchy, then that's why they based it on a messianic period. So I hope I answered the best, that's the best I could at this moment.
Okay, so from what I'm gathering, it's something for the future.
That's why they let Ezekiel be canonized, because they say this will be the future. That's what I started with.
Now, I had another question in terms of music, right? Is there any way in Torah that you can recollect where the Most High God told us, he directly commanded us to use instruments?
Actually, I don't recall any spot. It was Dawi's first friend we get with Miriam. That's the first time we ever get with Miriam. That's the very first time. And she had led women to bring instruments. Dawi already set up the worship service himself, because you never, and of course the singers. So you read that clearly that was Dawi's setup. The singers and the instruments and people with musicians, so that when you bring the sacrifice, that it don't look bland, that, you have a melody, a music, and everything like that. And you're learning certain lyrics. But that's why in the Psalms, you're talking about when you're praising the Creator, you praise him on this and praise him with that. In the Psalms, and David being a man after God's own heart, and plus a musician and a singer, would know definitely how to give the proper praise to the Creator. And he took it to a whole nother level. So,
because God didn't necessarily say that don't do it, it didn't mean that it was outlawed in terms of
right, exactly.
Right.
Only reason those that practice an Orthodox tradition is they got this thing about the 39 malakos, about, what if the string of an instrument pops and everything like that, while you plucking it and you cause it to pop and all that kind of stuff. So those are different rabbinic traditions and stuff like that. But I'm saying, if you beating on something, boom, 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 all right, you could be beating on your legs, beating on this here. There was nothing wrong with the instruments, but they say it should be only in the temple. So it is where a lot of stuff that's prohibited outside on Shabbat is permitted on Shabbat within the temple service. So that's why a lot of Orthodox people may not, involve themselves in it, because they look at, you only got one temple. Though Israelites like this call their place a temple, you only got basically one temple that we look at as Israel as a whole.
Torah about Nasik, always insightful, with a lot of knowledge, and bringing understanding to the masses and to the people, making them understand this Tanakh, this Torah, and all the things that we do. So thanking you once again.